Welcome to Arinda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi. I'm your host Arinda, and today we're talking about The Inheritance Circle with Cameron Sullivan. The Inheritance Circle is a trilogy of a young adult high fantasy novel written by the American author Christopher Paolini. Set in the fictional world of Allegatia, the novels focused on the adventures of a teenage boy named Aragon and his dragon Saphira, as they struggle to overthrow the evil king Galbatorix. I really love this series, as well as the books as the movie. It's a great story and a lot of adventure. To me, like Harry Potter, Dragon Doomer, and Lord of the Rings, I like to read this series every year at least once. There were two big shocks for me: that Bronn was Aragorn's father, and that Aragorn and Saphira were not the last dragon riders. I love the characters Aramis and Gladder. Today we're doing a little difference because of the time difference. I sent some questions to Cameron and he will answer them and give his own vision of this fantastic fantasy novels.
So, this is Cam Sully from the JURS podcast. Thank you for having me on the show. So, long story short, I did tend to read a few of those Aragorn books. I read the first one all the way through, then I read either the second or third one, and that's where it lost me. It was a fun bit of escapism, kind of contemporary, if for lack of a better word. The film was fine in its own right, but it wasn't as deep because they cut out all the deleted scenes. So I thought, when I saw all the reports of everyone acting like the author was derivative of Lord of the Rings, it's like, yeah, a lot of fantasy authors are. They were always imitating that, if not Game of Thrones or Conan the Barbarian. So I think you could overall make the argument that this is a book and a film that deserved better. But unfortunately, because there's a lot of people who like to just pigeonhole and nitpick everything, that wasn't working for it. I don't even know what kind of audience it's for. That being said, I wasn't able to get into some of the later books, so I think he kind of had some flash of ideas and then kind of after a while kind of ran out of them. So it'd be interesting to see if he tries to start a whole entirely different franchise or if he just stays in that corner. But thank you for having me on the show, and
So because of the record of Cameron was a little short, I am going to tell you what I really like about this Inheritance Circle of Christopher Paolini. The last time I checked, and when I did a little research on the web about the Inheritance Circle, I came across that he had written another book of this fantastic series. Although that was a little bit of a surprise. And talking about surprises, he surprised me with, and that was a little annoying, to be honest. I thought it was at the last page of the second last page of the first book or second book. I can't remember, but he surprised and revealed that Aragorn wasn't the last dragon rider. And to meeting Aramis and Gladder, that was a big surprise because I couldn't think about that there would be another dragon rider. So it was very nice to know that Aragorn and Saphira would have some kind of a mentor. And I really love Aramis and Gladder. I see them as the teachers, and also in other fantasy stories for dragons, I always kind of hope that there will be a mentor like Aramis and Gladder. Maybe you asking yourself, why do you love that series so much? Well, I love fantasy, and I write fantasy, especially with dragons and dragon riders. But also all the tropes you see in and read in, it's just nice to read and to go to a totally different world. And I must say, another surprise in the series is that Brom is the father of Aragorn. And never in a million years I thought we would learn a little bit more about Aragorn and his background and his family. Of course, we know that he's been brought up by his aunt and uncle, and he lived there and worked the land, etc., etc. The other thing I really like is that there is the trope, of course, and it's an obvious trope. Good fares bad. And Galbatorix, who demands and dominates the Razaks, but also his black dragon. He forced that black dragon to serve him. And I always, in a way, hated that. But I do think it's nice to see and read that this good fares bad is also the mention of light fade as dark. You can see that in the magic as well. What really is still a very mystery for me is the elves in this series. We know the physical beings of elves, normally strong, very royal-like, very majestic, and very intelligent, etc. We meet his female elf friend, who also, the reason was that he snuck into Galbatorix's castle to free her. I can't remember her name, sorry. But she is also the one I think he has a crush on. And later in the books you see little, I don't want to say flirtations, but there is something there. I do love the other cultures in the whole thing and the whole battle against Galbatorix, and how he write and describe the land of Allegatia and the people in it, and also the bond between Dragon Rider and Rider. But gosh, you have to forgive me in the way of it's been a little while I have read all of the books, so forgive me for it. So I do think there is being a big role also for his cousin, who eventually tried to escape for the call of duty of being in the army for Galbatorix. And what's his name? I can't remember his name. Okay, but he was very skilled with a hammer, and he had a nickname. He eventually joined the troops of the resistance, and very later on Aragorn meet him again on one of the battlefields, and I love their brothership and like more friendship that they have. So I think that it's nice to see too that they're so strong in family, but also strong in the friendship they got, and that will help them in battle. So there's one thing we still need to talk about, and that is the dragons. I really love the dragons in this series, and also it's not only, and that's what I really love to take this trope as well. I don't see the dragons as wrong, but more like those are magical creatures who are very wise, but also, and that's what we have to bear in mind, you don't own a dragon, you live and fight with a dragon. So you never can own a dragon. So what Galbatorix is doing is very, very wrong. And the way he have been treating those dragons, and I must say, it reminds me of the movie of Dungeons and Dragons, also starring Jeremy Irons, and he played Prothean in that movie. And so Prothean is a very wrong wizard who wants to claim the magical staff to dominate and own the red dragons. So every time I talk about or read about Galbatorix, it reminds me of Prothean. I must say that, and what I really, really love about it is that if we, coming back to the Elves, I was forgetting, the mystical thing of the Elves in this series is you don't ever meet them with some background. So we know Aragorn's elven friend is also a princess, and they will be talking a little bit about her mother, and I always got the feeling that her mother had no emotions like Vulcans do, and she punished her daughter a lot, and I never liked that. So again, when we talk about elves, I have to think about the elves from Lord of the Rings, for example. They are a little bit more open about who they are and what they do and what they think. And I thought Christopher Paolini could do that a little bit better. And now I must say, I'm gonna read the books again, because now I'm curious again how that's the crazy thing about. I'm doing a fantasy writing course, and now I'm reading books like a fantasy writer. So it's really crazy sometimes how you read it as a fan versus how you read it as a fantasy writer. So in one way I can understand Christopher Paolini in how he writes, how he developed his story, etc., etc. Sometimes I would do things differently, because like I said, some things he could write it a little better. But okay, I'm not going to argue with that long, because he is a published writer, and I do publish my stories, but not of making money of it or whatever. So we also have to talk about Mortag, brother? Yeah, I thought it was his half brother of Aragorn. But Galbatorix was his father. And was that one of his wizards? No, it was Galbatorix. And Mortag had a big scar of his father. So, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong with this, because like I said, it's been a long time ago I read the books, but Mortag is a character that I was hoping so much that he would be good and join Aragorn in the fight against Galbatorix, but it wasn't. Galbatorix used him as a pawn. In one way that was really shocking, because in one way you always hope this would be like standing up against your father with your own brother, but now it was you fight against your brother. And there were some things that I was thinking, okay, it's a really complicated story, and especially what I said between Mortek and Aragorn. And I also think Mortek he had two faces. Well, two faces, maybe it was more like, and I don't know this, but in one way I think he had two faces, and the other one hand I think he was so manipulated by Galbatorix that he's, quote, spied, end quote, on Aragorn and what happens. But I do also think there was some similarity because of what happened, that first he became friends with Aragorn, and they went to the Resistance and they captured him, and later on, meanwhile, there was a battle and Mortek fought for the Alliance. So it was very, very, no, I don't want to say confusing, but it was like I was feeling, okay, this is a real bad changing of events. In one way, I must say, yeah, in overall, I really like this series, and now I'm definitely going to read it again and ordering the 5th book because I'm very curious about that. If you really, if you are interested in this series, let me know, and I can give you the titles of those 5 books. Yeah, who knows what we are gonna expect in the future of Christopher Paolini. If you like this podcast, you can like and subscribe on all the platforms. You can also follow and comment on Podbean, Spotify and Google Podcast. On social media, the Facebook group, the Discord server and YouTube channel of Orinda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi, and on Twitter at OTFASP. Let me know what you think of this episode. In the next episode, we will talk about Stargate SG-1. I am Orinda, and thank you for listening to Orinda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi. See you next time.